We'd been passing around burgers and beers when her cousin Mark, half drunk and loud as always, leaned over to me and laughed. "Man, isn't it funny how Liam looks nothing like you? I swear he's got more of the pool guy's eyes." Everyone laughed, or pretended to. I played along with a grin, tossing a chip at Mark's head, and muttered something like, "Guess he took after his mom." But Emily's laugh came half a second too late. Tight. Hollow. I caught the way her fingers froze around her wine glass. And then there was Jessica, her best friend since college, standing just behind her. She didn't laugh, didn't smile, just looked down and took a sip of her drink like she wished she could disappear. That silence, 2 seconds, maybe 3, changed something. Not in the world, not yet, but inside me. A flicker of something I couldn't name, crawling behind my ribs. I didn't say anything else that night. We ate. We drank. We cleaned up paper plates and empty bottles. Liam and Ava fell asleep in the car on the drive home. Emily hummed along to the radio, and I watched her from the driver's seat, not like a husband admiring his wife, like a man trying to remember if he'd always known her this way. Back at the house, after we'd carried them upstairs and tucked them in, I poured myself a bourbon and stood by the window while Emily washed her face in the bathroom. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just unsettled. That kind of unsettled you get when the ground feels soft under your feet, but you can't see the crack. It could have been nothing. A drunk cousin and a weird silence. But my instincts, usually quiet, loyal, forgiving, had lifted their heads for the first time in years. I filed the moment away like a receipt I didn't recognize. Not worth confronting. But not to be thrown out either. Later that night, lying beside her, I stared at the ceiling while she curled into me like nothing had changed. Her breath slowed, soft and steady against my arm. But I stayed awake, eyes open, counting seconds between thoughts I didn't want to have. The next evening, Emily was half lost in a book on the couch. I casually brought up Mark's comment. "Funny thing Mark said yesterday, huh?" I said, keeping my tone light. "About Liam not looking like me." She didn't look up right away, just turned a page. "Mark says dumb things?" I smiled a little. "Yeah, true. Still, you ever think about it?" Now she looked up. "About what? Whether he looks more like me or you?" Her expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker behind her eyes, quick, almost mechanical. "He has your ears," she said a bit too fast, "and your sense of humor." It was a dodge, a gentle redirection, but I knew her well enough to hear the shift in pitch when she was pushing a conversation away. She leaned her head on the back cushion and returned to her book. "Why are you suddenly wondering about that?" I shrugged, pretending to sip from my glass. "Just a dumb joke that stuck in my head, I guess." She didn't answer. The room settled back into silence, but the balance had shifted. That one moment lingered like a hairline crack beneath paint. Later that week, I watched Liam laugh at something on TV, and for the first time, I noticed how different his smile was from mine. His laugh had a softness mine didn't. His hair curled tighter. His jawline wasn't mine. Neither was Ava's nose, now that I looked closer. I hadn't questioned these things before. Why would I? I was there for the hospital visits, the midnight feedings, the fevers and birthdays. But now I couldn't stop seeing it. The space between what should have been and what was. I went into the closet that night after Emily fell asleep, dug out the old photo albums, our wedding, our honeymoon, the early years. Somewhere between those pages, I noticed something else. The timeline felt strange. There was a 6-month stretch between our engagement and wedding where the photos thinned out. No couple shots. Just Emily with Jessica, Emily with coworkers. I remembered she had taken a solo retreat to sort her head out before settling down. I'd supported it back then, thought it was mature, even noble. I hadn't asked questions, but now I did. I couldn't remember what month Liam was born, exactly. February, I thought. But suddenly, the math mattered more than I wanted to admit. I sat on the floor in the dark hallway, that photo album heavy on my lap, and tried to remember if love was supposed to come with this kind of doubt. 2 nights later, I stood alone in the garage, flipping through the plastic bins where we kept the old keepsakes. Birthday cards, hospital bracelets, sonogram prints, all the proof of a life carefully built. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I found it. A small blue journal. Leather-bound. Hers. Emily used to write when we were first dating. She'd call it her way of sorting out the chaos in her head. I'd never read it before. She'd asked me not to back then. I'd honored that. But that was before Mark's joke, before the silence, before the shadows started stretching long across memories I used to trust. I flipped through pages quickly, skimming. Most entries were ordinary. Lists, feelings, wedding stress. Then one dated just a few months before our engagement stopped me cold. Some choices feel like lies waiting to get caught. But sometimes you pick what gives you peace, not what gives you truth. I just hope one day that's enough. No names. No specifics. But I stared at that page for what felt like hours. I could hear her voice in the sentence, her guilt hidden in poetry, her way of softening sharp truths. The air in the garage felt tighter. My chest too. I closed the journal gently, as if that would undo what I'd read. That night, I lay in bed beside her again. She was asleep quickly, always had been able to shut the world off like a switch. I watched her in the dim light, searching her face for the woman who once looked me in the eye and promised forever. Nothing in her expression betrayed anything. But that was the problem now. I didn't trust what I couldn't see anymore. The next morning, over coffee, I asked her what year Liam was born. I knew the answer. I just wanted to hear how easily she'd say it. She smiled. 2015. Why? I nodded, pretending to scroll my phone. Just thinking about old pictures. We should back them up, she agreed. We moved on. She kissed my cheek before heading out to work. But I sat there alone at the kitchen table, every surface in the house suddenly feeling like it held a secret. I couldn't get her journal entry out of my head. Some choices feel like lies waiting to get caught. I needed more than words. I needed proof. Real answers. That evening, I sat in my office and searched for private DNA testing kits. There were more options than I expected. Discreet packaging. Fast turnaround. Absolute confidentiality. My fingers hovered over the order now button. I didn't want to do it. Not really. I wanted to wake up from this paranoia, hold my family like nothing was wrong. But wanting didn't matter anymore. Click. Order confirmed. The box would arrive in 2 days. I stared at the confirmation email for a long time before deleting it. Then I sat back and listened to the quiet of the house. The kind of quiet that's not peace, but distance. The box arrived on a Thursday. Plain cardboard, no branding. Just as promised, discreet. I waited until everyone was asleep. Emily had dozed off watching something upstairs, the soft hum of the TV barely audible. The silence of the house was deceptive, like a surface of still water over something rotting beneath. I opened the box at my desk, hands slow, deliberate. Inside, 2 sterile swabs, small labeled vials, instructions so clean and methodical they made my stomach turn. I stared at them for a long time. Then I stood up, walked down the hall, and paused outside Liam's door. He was curled under his blanket, mouth slightly open, one arm draped over a stuffed dinosaur we bought together at a fair. The sight nearly undid me. This wasn't about him. None of this was his fault. But I moved anyway, slowly, gently, the way I had when he was a baby and I'd rock him through teething nights. I swabbed inside his cheek, steady but quick, then sealed it. Ava was next. She shifted a little as I leaned over her. Her hair smelled like the strawberry shampoo she always begged Emily for. Her breath was soft against my wrist. I did it, sealed her sample too. Back in the office, I labeled the vials and packed them in the prepaid return envelope. I sat there, both samples in my hand, for maybe 15 minutes, maybe longer. I kept waiting for something, guilt, regret, clarity. But none of it came. Just a sick emptiness I couldn't name. The next morning, I left for work early. Dropped the envelope in a mailbox 2 neighborhoods over. I told myself it was for privacy. The truth was, I didn't want to be anywhere near that package anymore. The days that followed dragged. Each night, I smiled through dinner, laughed when expected, nodded at bedtime stories. Emily noticed nothing. She kissed my cheek, left her phone face down on the counter, and never once asked why I seemed tired. And I was tired, bone-deep tired. Not from work or parenting, but from pretending I didn't see the way truth was approaching like a slow wave, building somewhere offshore, ready to crash through the life we'd built. On the 5th night, I sat alone in the living room after everyone was asleep, lights off, just the glow from a street lamp outside. I remember thinking, if the tests come back clean, I'll feel relief, gratitude. I'll drop this, burn the journal, let it die. But if they don't, I didn't finish the thought. I didn't need to. I already knew. The email came in the following Tuesday. I saw the subject line, "Your DNA test results are ready," and for a moment I just stared at it. The cursor hovered over the unopened message like it knew better than I did. My heart pounded, but everything else felt slow, muted, like sound underwater. I clicked. The document was short, efficient, scientific. Alleged father, not excluded, was what I was supposed to see. Instead, for both profiles, Liam and Ava, it read, alleged father, excluded as biological father, twice, in clean, unflinching font. I read the sentences again, then again. A part of me was convinced I'd misunderstood, that maybe they worded it backwards, that maybe, excluded, meant I wasn't ruled out. But no. I knew exactly what it meant. None of the results linked to me. The room went quiet in a way that made me feel like I'd left my body. Like I was just a shell sitting there, blinking at an email that shattered 10 years of my life with 3 clinical words. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stopped moving. My hands slowly left the keyboard, settled in my lap. I didn't move for a long time. Eventually, I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water and didn't drink it. Just stood there, staring at it like it would help me find the years I'd lost. Images flickered through my mind like old film reels. Emily in the delivery room, her hand clutching mine, Liam's first steps, Ava's smile at her last birthday party. I had held their hands, kissed scraped knees, stayed up during fevers, sacrificed weekends, promotions, sleep, for them. And none of it had been rooted in truth. I thought of the journal, that one line echoing louder now. Some choices feel like lies waiting to get caught. She had known, for years. And she let me carry this life like it belonged to me. I went into our bedroom, where Emily had left a stack of folded laundry on the bed. Her scent was on the sheets, her slippers by the dresser. This was the room where we had planned our future, whispered names, fought, made up. Every inch of it felt like a memory now infected. I sat down at my desk again, opened the email, and printed the report. It came out in silence. A simple, white sheet of paper that now held more weight than any promise she'd ever made me. I placed it in a folder. The investigation wasn't over. It had just begun. Because now I wasn't just searching for the truth. I was preparing for war. The results broke something permanent, but I didn't let it show. Not yet. That week, I moved like a shadow through my own life, smiling when I had to, nodding at the right moments, pretending I hadn't seen the map of betrayal printed in black and white. But behind the mask, I started digging. It began with the old laptop in the closet, one Emily hadn't used in years. She'd backed up her photos and files to an external drive years ago, then forgot about it. I hadn't. I found it tucked behind a box of winter boots. The drive was still labeled Wedding Planning and Honeymoon. I plugged it in late one night when the house was asleep. There were folders of beach pictures, bridal showers, honeymoon selfies. Then, buried near the bottom, a zip file. Personal archive. I opened it. Inside, old email drafts, screenshots, some saved messages from a Gmail account I didn't recognize. The texts were half deleted, jumbled, but patterns emerged. Names, flirtation, emotional confessions dated just months before our engagement. One thread stopped me cold. Someone saved in her phone as J. The tone was unmistakably personal and familiar. They joked about sneaking around, about choices they'd regret later. One message read, I know we said it ends before the wedding, but some part of me wants to keep the door open. You've always been the better fit. The date was 6 weeks before she accepted my proposal. I kept reading. The timeline came into focus like a photo in a darkroom. She hadn't stumbled into something brief. She'd been juggling multiple men while asking me to plan a future with her. The DNA test hadn't just revealed a biological truth, it had torn a hole in the story I'd believed about how we began. She had been unfaithful before the engagement. Continued contact well into the pregnancy. I found financial anomalies next, old Venmo payments to names I didn't recognize, coded with emojis or vague notes. Thanks for the help, Friday fun, late night run, one even said. Cab ride from Jay's. Each new piece was a nail through the version of Emily I'd loved. But I didn't rage. I saved everything. I started backing up emails, exporting files, taking screenshots. Every photo. Every message. All of it cataloged, organized, printed, labeled. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I needed leverage. Because when the time came to expose the truth, I wasn't going to rely on emotion or guilt. I was going to bring facts. And facts don't beg. They don't plead. They don't blink. By the end of the week, I had a binder thick with printed emails, transaction records, and now, DNA results. Emily still kissed me goodnight like nothing had changed. But she was kissing a ghost. The man she betrayed had been buried under years of lies. The man who was rising, he was methodical, cold, and absolutely done pretending. By the following Monday, I knew what I had to do. The evidence was airtight. But this wouldn't be a scene. I wouldn't give her that. She didn't deserve chaos. She deserved control. Mine. I took the morning off work and met with a lawyer downtown. Clean suit, no nonsense tone. She listened without interrupting as I laid it out. Paternity test results, infidelity, financial concealment. When I showed her the binder, she paused. You've already done more groundwork than most clients who walk in here. I nodded. I'm not here to react. I'm here to end it. We discussed everything. Separation strategy, asset division, removal from birth records, legal protections. She explained how deception weakened her claims, how the courts would likely view Emily's actions as misrepresentation. Not just personal betrayal, but legal misrepresentation. By noon, I'd signed documents to begin proceedings, quiet ones for now. The storm would come later. Afterward, I went to the bank, opened a new personal account, moved a percentage of my income into it, the portion I'd long ago stopped noticing, direct deposit savings I'd never questioned. Not hidden, just reallocated. Next stop, a storage unit. Small, climate-controlled, under my name only. I moved out personal files, valuables, keepsakes from my late father. Things Emily never touched, but I wouldn't risk losing when things turned. Back home, I went room to room that evening pretending to be tidying, but really it was inventory. Which documents were where? Which electronics held backups? What she might try to erase when panic set in. And she would panic. I even told my boss I'd need time off. Soon, unexpectedly. Due to a family health situation. That way, when the confrontation came and the dust rose, I wouldn't be tied to meetings or deadlines. Everything was aligned. That night, Emily handed me a glass of wine while we watched TV. Her head rested on my shoulder. She asked if I liked the new series we'd started. I nodded. It's growing on me. She smiled, unaware. She smelled like lavender and loyalty she never gave. I almost pitied her, for a second. Almost. Because the woman sitting next to me had no idea the man she betrayed wasn't bluffing. She had gambled that comfort would erase consequences. She was about to lose that bet. It happened on a Thursday evening. Emily came through the front door just after 6, arms full of takeout bags and humming something tuneless under her breath. I was already seated at the dining table, lights low, no music. Just a thick folder in front of me and a sealed envelope beside it. She smiled when she saw me. Hey, I brought Ty. Thought we could have an easy night. I didn't smile back. I didn't move. Just watched her as she set the bags on the kitchen counter, the casual warmth still in her voice. What's going on? She asked when she finally noticed the silence between us, her eyes flicking to the folder. I held her gaze steady. I know, I said quietly. She tilted her head, frowning slightly. Know what? I kept my voice even. They're not mine. She blinked, visibly thrown. What are you talking about? I reached for the folder and opened it slowly, revealing the DNA results. I didn't push them toward her, just let the page sit there between us. The test came back, I said, for both of them. She stepped closer, but her voice was sharper now, tighter around the edges. That's insane. Those things aren't always accurate. Maybe the lab. I cut her off gently. I used 2 labs, separate submissions. Same results. She stood frozen, hands still halfway raised, eyes wide but not entirely surprised. The way her breath caught was too practiced. This was years ago, she said finally. Before we were fully committed. Before everything got real. I nodded slowly. We were engaged. Her voice cracked. I didn't know what I wanted back then. I was scared. Confused. But you knew what you were doing, I said. You made choices. And then you made me live with the lie. She tried to sit down, her movements clumsy. Her hands gripped the back of a chair as if to steady herself. But you raised them, she said softly. That's real. That counts for something, doesn't it? I stood now, slowly and quietly, and placed the sealed envelope beside the folder. Those are divorce papers, I said. I've filed for a formal review of parental responsibilities. I've already filed the paternity correction petition. Her voice broke. You're leaving? I'm protecting myself, I said. And the version of me you used up. Tears filled her eyes, and for a moment she looked 20 again, scared, cornered, but still calculating. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I didn't think it would go this far. You didn't think it would matter, I corrected. You thought time would bury it. She moved toward me, hand outstretched. Let's talk, please. I can fix this. I didn't flinch. You already fixed it. You just made sure it benefited you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They love you. You're their dad. No, I said, my voice flat. I was a stand-in. You wrote the script. I just didn't realize I was acting. I picked up my coat, the room colder now despite her presence. She watched me, stunned, as I walked to the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice small. I looked at her one last time. Out. For how long? I paused with my hand on the knob. Long enough for you to hear what silence sounds like when it's honest, and then I left. She didn't follow. I didn't sleep at home that night. I checked into a small business hotel on the edge of town, nothing fancy. Just four walls and silence, the kind of quiet that didn't have her perfume woven into the sheets. Emily called twice. I didn't answer. In the morning, I woke to 3 unread messages. The first was short. We need to talk. The second longer. They love you. Please don't punish them for my mistake. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The third was just a photo. Liam and Ava on the back porch, laughing in the evening light. The caption read, They still need you. I stared at that photo for a long time, then deleted it. She wanted to frame this as a tragedy we could fix, but this wasn't a fire to extinguish. This was damage planted long ago, and she'd lit the fuse herself. That afternoon, I returned to the house to pack a few essentials. I didn't warn her. She was sitting on the couch when I walked in, eyes red, makeup smudged. The folder and legal envelope were still on the table, untouched, like she couldn't bring herself to move them. She stood when she saw me. You can't just disappear, she said, voice raw. They're still mine. I didn't stop moving as I walked past her, heading to the bedroom. Legally, I said. Not for long, she followed. They've never known anything but your story. I started pulling clothes from the drawers, folding them into a travel bag. That's because they were never told the truth. She reached for my arm. They're not just biology, they're... I stepped back. Stop. Don't use them to hold me here. Her shoulders sagged, but she kept going. It was one mistake. One window of time. And I didn't even know for sure. I hoped, it would just fade. And when it didn't? I asked, folding the last of my shirts. You just waited for me to love them enough that I wouldn't ask? Her voice cracked. I thought we could bury it. I zipped the bag. You buried it in my name, in my life, in every lie you repeated every day. Her hands trembled as she sat down on the edge of the bed. I didn't want to lose this. You already did, I said quietly. You just didn't know it yet. I paused in the doorway as I left the room, looked back once. She was staring at the floor. They need you, she whispered again. I felt the weight of those words, felt them press against everything I'd ever been for them. But I didn't answer. Because I wasn't the one who left them without a real father. She was. The days that followed unraveled with surgical precision. Emily's family reached out first. Text from her sister, a voicemail from her father, a carefully worded message from her mother asking if I was okay, and if there'd been a misunderstanding. I didn't respond to any of them. Their loyalty would twist the truth. They always had a way of seeing what they needed to see. My own family was quieter. My brother called and simply said, Whatever you need, I'm here. My mother, after a long pause on the phone, said, I'm sorry. I always wondered why you looked tired even when things seemed good. Either of them asked for details. They didn't need to. What hurt more were the friends, the ones who split into camps overnight. Some reached out privately, quietly supporting me. Others started posting vague messages about fathers walking away and responsibility beyond DNA. It was obvious where those came from. Emily had started spinning her version of the story. In her version, I just snapped. Walked away. Couldn't handle the weight. She used words like overwhelmed, struggling, identity crisis. Not once did she say the word truth. I said little. I didn't take interviews with anyone. Didn't offer a counter-narrative. When someone asked directly, usually a mutual friend who thought neutrality was virtue, I gave the same answer every time. Truth changed everything. That was all. I watched from a distance as Emily tried to keep the house together. She stopped posting family photos, She showed up at school events alone. The ones I'd raised, still unaware of the full story, kept asking where I was. I knew that much from the school counselor, who reached out privately to tell me they had questions and were unsettled. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I didn't care. Because I had to be careful. My attorney had advised complete separation until the court filings were processed. We needed space between my name and the false narrative. I wasn't abandoning them. I was stepping out of a lie built in my name. Meanwhile, the house, my house, felt like a place I used to live, a set built around a role I was no longer willing to play. One night I drove by after work, parking across the street. The lights were on. Emily passed in front of the living room window holding a laundry basket. For a moment she paused, touched the glass, and looked out, toward the dark, toward me. She couldn't see me, but I saw her, and for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt distance, not just physical, spiritual, permanent. The storm hadn't ended, but I had already stepped into the clear. The petition to remove my name from the birth certificates went through faster than expected. Emily's deception, the timeline, the DNA proof, the concealed communication with multiple partners, tipped the scale. The court didn't just see this as a domestic betrayal. They saw it as a matter of fraud. Her attorney tried to frame it differently, argued that I had taken on the role of a father figure, and that stepping away could disrupt the stability of those I had raised. But the judge looked at the paternity tests, looked at the timeline, looked at the facts. Then he looked at Emily, and he asked a simple question. At any point during the marriage, did you inform your husband there was a possibility he wasn't the biological father? She hesitated. Too long. Then answered barely above a whisper. No. That was enough. The court granted my petition. I was legally unbound. Support obligations? Terminated. Spousal maintenance? Denied. The court ruled that her deception invalidated her claims. Then came the part she hadn't prepared for. The judge ordered her to disclose the names of all possible biological fathers. Full list. No omissions. Her face when she heard that. I'll never forget it. It was the first time she looked genuinely cornered. Like the game she thought she was playing had suddenly become very, very real. After the ruling, my lawyer leaned in and said, "You've won the first round. But this isn't over." She was right. Because once the names were disclosed, names I recognized, names that had once shaken my hand at barbecues, one of them lawyered up and filed a paternity claim. He wanted rights, visitation, maybe more. And just like that, the private betrayal became a public scandal. It started on parenting forums, spread through school circles. Then someone leaked the court filings, names redacted, but it wasn't hard for anyone local to fill in the blanks. Emily went from being seen as a devoted mother to being whispered about in grocery store aisles. People stared. Some spoke in hushed tones at PTA meetings, others just stopped replying to her messages entirely. The betrayal had become hers to carry, alone. And me? I stayed quiet, moved through the legal steps like a man checking boxes on a blueprint he never wanted to draw. Each signature, each court date, was another brick in the wall I was building between who I'd been and who I was becoming. Not vindictive, just free. The paternity suit filed by one of the biological fathers changed everything. His name was Jeremy, and once upon a time, he was the guy who coached Liam's soccer team while slapping me on the back and calling me bro. He filed for legal recognition, and the story spilled into public records. It didn't take long for it to leak. First, it was a whisper, half a sentence overheard at the school drop-off line. Then, a local parenting blog posted an anonymous case study, clearly about us. After that, it spread like spilled wine on white carpet, fast, staining everything. Emily went from hosting bake sales to being side-eyed in the grocery aisle. Parents at school stopped making eye contact. Birthday party invites stopped arriving. Her reputation, once built on curated Instagram captions and seasonal crafts, started to decay in real time. One day, I got a text from a former coworker of hers. "She's on leave. HR says it's personal reasons, but people talk." People always do. I didn't gloat. That's not what this was about. I didn't need her to suffer. I just needed the truth to be undeniable. Publicly. Permanently. Jeremy got court-mandated visitation rights. Another man, an old college friend I barely remembered, filed next. The legal system was following up with formal filings and obligations. The irony was thick. She used to say, "It was years ago." Now, Every day felt like it was chasing her back. Meanwhile, I relocated. Quietly. I transferred to a branch office in another city. Rented a small house on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. No headlines. No explanations. I set up my workspace. Hung a few photographs that still mattered. Got a dog. A rescue with tired eyes and no expectations. My nights were calm. Empty, but clean. Emily messaged once. Just one line. I never meant to lose everything. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I archived it. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. She built her comfort on a foundation of lies. And I, stupid, loyal, well-intentioned, had carried that structure until my back broke under it. Now, I was walking away from the wreckage. Not healed, but free. Not whole, but finally mine. And in the quiet of that rented home, as the sun slipped behind the trees, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace.